Okay, I'm hoping that this works this time. I already recorded this once, so I'm going to try not to do this a whole lot, but sometimes I might have to just if we have run out of time. So I'm going to try to keep this under 10 minutes. Uh, yeah, so let me set a timer real quick. Okay, here we go. So last thing we need to talk about is the 7 perspectives or approaches to psychology. So, as we said on the first day, there's never a right or wrong answer, or there's never a black and white answer to anything in psychology. And that's because we can look at human behavior from so many different angles. That is the purpose of these 7 perspectives. Now, I don't expect for you to really understand them entirely right now. What I'm going to do is I gave you a handout with a chart that I'm going to go over, and I underlined some keywords. That's basically all you need to know for right now. Okay, you don't need to know anything other than the keywords, just being able to kind of recognize a description of each one of them. Okay, so these 7 approaches or perspectives, they mean the same thing, are complementary of one another, which means they work together. Okay, there is not one that is entirely right or entirely wrong. Okay, they just are different ways of explaining human behavior. So I'm going to go through them, kind of underline keywords, give you a basic understanding of it. And yeah, that'll be about it. Then we'll talk about subfields real quick. And as I said, trying to keep it under 10 minutes. So we're going to go from kind of oldest to newest. As we said, the original, sort of the earliest field of modern psychology is what is called psychoanalysis or psychodynamics. For the purpose of this class, they basically mean the same thing. This was founded by Sigmund Freud and then later on built on by a guy named Carl Jung. Psychoanalysis essentially looks at how unconscious drives, meaning aggressive and sexual drives that are deep in our unconscious mind, meaning we are not able to consciously access them, how do those influence behavior? It is heavily about sex and aggression, as we said, and it looks at how personality traits, disorders, particularly anxiety, can be explained by sort of unfulfilled wishes and then things that happen in childhood. So just got to know the basics of that. Behavioral perspective comes after that, founded by a guy named John Watson, who believed that psychology should be the science of observable behavior, meaning we should only care about what we can see. Behaviorism looks at how do we learn observable behaviors. Okay, how do we learn how to behave in certain situations? How do we learn to fear certain things? What is the best way to alter behavior? It looks a lot at how punishment and reward play a role in altering behavior. All right, so just know observable behavior. Humanistic perspective comes about in the 1950s, founded by a guy named Abraham Maslow and then a guy named Carl Rogers later on. This is kind of everybody hold hands. Everybody has positive traits, and it looks at how our behavior is directed towards furthering our own personal growth and self-fulfillment, and how can we overcome barriers for our personal growth. If you've ever seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the triangle that has different levels to it, that is a humanistic idea. It's all about reaching our full potential. Cognitive perspective looks at how behavior is influenced by memory, how we encode, process, store, and retrieve information. All those are memory words to associate with memory. How we think, how our language influences behavior, so on and so forth. So just basically how our behavior is influenced by how we think. Biological perspective, how do the body and brain influence emotions, memories, what's the biological basis for all this stuff, our sensory experiences, how do pain messages travel from the hand up to the brain, how do genes, hormones, neurotransmitters, which are chemical messengers in the brain, how do those things influence behavior? That will be the next unit that we do. Evolutionary perspective, looking at how things like natural selection of traits has promoted the survival of genes, right? All about survival of the fittest. Okay, this goes along with Darwin's ideas. How do evolutionary trends influence behavioral tendencies? Why do women maybe are more attracted to taller, stronger men? With men maybe more attracted to women who look like they would be good for childbearing, whatnot. All about survival and reproduction. And then finally, the sociocultural or social cultural perspective. How does our behavior and thinking change across cultures and different situations? How do the different cultures you are a part of, your home life, your ethnicity, your religion, the different groups you're a part of, and whatnot? How do all of those affect your behavior? So these are just kind of the basic ideas of what we are going to get into throughout the year. We will do units that kind of follow all of these perspectives. All right, last couple things. Important subfields. Subfields are like areas of study. These are two newer ones. Human factor psychology looks at how people interact with technology. It is kind of the bridge between psychology, engineering, comp sci, all of these. It's a very, very cool field. It's very new. How do we make websites more user friendly? How do we make cars more user friendly? How do phones, whatnot? Just making sure everything is safe and efficient. Then industrial organizational, another very cool newer field of psychology. How do we maximize productivity at work? It's also called occupational psych. Occupational things like how do we get better performance? How do we motivate? How do we get better job satisfaction, well-being of employees? All of these different things. One of the big things now would be how do we implement a work from home schedule, which a lot of places are starting to do because people realized that they liked it during the pandemic. So, and then two of the other subfields, social psychology. We'll do a full unit on this, just how people interact in groups. Things like why do we conform, obedience, whatnot. Why do groups change our behavior? And then developmental psychology, another one that we will do a full unit on. How do we change over our lifespan? How do things like parenting styles affect us? Social factors in development, attachment. How do we develop cognitively? How do our morals develop? All these different things. We'll do a full unit on development. And then psychometrics is just using how do we use data to analyze human behavior? And then positive psychology, another newer field of psychology that kind of comes out of the humanistic field. How do we study characteristics that help us reach our full potential? How do we study human happiness? So, under 10 minutes, actually way under, 8 minutes and 45 seconds. So hopefully, don't worry if you don't fully understand these right now. You will. We will talk at length about all of them. We will get way more in depth with them. All right. So there you go. Hope that was all right.